Good evening and welcome to Dore on Tour for a show talking about the latest game for Nottingham Forest. It was Nottingham Forest versus Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest yesterday at the Emirates. And joining me this evening is alongside me, is Des and Glenn. Des, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm a little bit tired from the weekend and the game, but kind of enjoyed what I saw to some degree, apart from the fact we got beat. So looking forward to getting stuck into it.
Lovely stuff. It always tires me out going to London, I think. And Glenn, I think you're a bit more accustomed to London than we are, and we'll be able to talk about maybe a bit of a story that you had. I think it was earlier in the day with Professor Green at some point as well. How are you?
Yeah. Pro Green, a big gooner. Was walking his dog through the park that I was setting up my park run in. I chat with him about the Arsenal very briefly, but yeah, he's a local guy that we've sort of got to know in passing and stuff like that. But yeah, big gooner, and I'm not sure how he thought about the game, but no doubt we'll go through it now.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about yesterday's game, because I do think that, I don't know if it was necessarily a tale of two halves per se, but there was definitely an element of and two very different Forest teams and two very different approaches throughout that game. And one of them I was very fond of. The other, it was quite a tough watch. But before we talk about that, just a good evening to all those that are currently watching. If you are watching, drop us a like, drop us a subscribe, and keep the comments coming in. Love to hear more from what you are thinking about the game. I'm not Mr. Dore, and I've not blanked any DMs, so don't blame me. Don't blame me. I've not. Dore's not been sacked, by the way. I'm just covering him just for this one. So I hope you're doing well, Davey. Good evening. Chris, good to hear from you. Game of 316. I hope you're doing well. Dore's busy at the moment, so I'm just covering him for him this evening. And thank you. So, Des, let's start with you then. So, yesterday's game, 2-1. I think a lot of people said, and maybe rightly so, actually, for the last time that we went to the Emirates, that it's probably going to be a 3-4, potentially even 5-0 loss. So to come away with a 2-1 loss isn't so bad. But how could you summarise that defeat at the Emirates yesterday?
It's not too bad, is it, Jay? A lot of teams will go there and they'll get beat, and they'll get beat well. You know, we come up against a good side, a team that just missed out on the title last year. Of course, they blew it up, but for much of it, for 95% of the season, it was absolutely fantastic. Yesterday, we go there with an indifferent pre-season, which I know we'll come to a little bit later, but the indifferent pre-season, perhaps low in confidence. I was worrying what the score might be, wondering who was going to play, what was going to happen. First half, we kind of approached it in the way we approached most games last season, perhaps looking to hold on for as long as we can. It took Arsenal a bit longer than expected, to be honest, to break us down. And then we gave a silly goal away straight away, which looked like we'd shot ourselves in the foot, and it was going to be a long, long afternoon. It looked like it might get up to the sort of numbers that we were talking about last season, 4, 5, 6. But second half, I felt Forest come out and show much more intent. I was saying to the person I was with at the game, even before the goal, there was a lot of people moaning, saying it's negative, low block, God forbid that horrible word. There was a lot of people sort of bemoaning what was happening, but I felt that we've shown a lot more, without doing anything special. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't fantastic, even before the goal. But Turner was kicking the ball long, he was getting it forward quickly, and we was making the defence think. Playing it out from the back, as all teams try to do these days, it's not working for Forest, is it? Because we're not cohesive enough, and I've bemoaned the fact we've not got a number 6. So at times, I think when we go away, we've got to get that ball forward quickly if we're going to make their defence start thinking about things. The one chance we did have first half was Brennan Johnson when it sort of broke into his path. And if that goes in, it's a different story. And that was because it came back quickly at Arsenal, and we'd not done that enough. They got on top of us. They got that lead. They got comfortable. Let's not be silly about it. They probably took the foot off the gas just a little bit. I felt Saka and Odegaard in the second half of the first half were phenomenal. I thought Odegaard was on a different level to anything I've seen for a long time. So they could have run out comfortable winners. But what was pleasing was, like I say, second half, right from the get-go, you saw Turner get the ball, run to the edge of the box, looking to get it up the pitch. And it wasn't doing anything until we brought on Taiwo. Elanga came on. They of course linked well for that goal. I didn't realise Taiwo had started the move when I was at the game, and he finished it. And that was really, really promising, because as soon as Elanga went down that touchline, Arsenal were worried. The pace, we saw it in the flesh, the pace that he showed in that move, every time he got the ball after that, the Arsenal defence were fighting to death. And he didn't actually do that much after, but because he'd done that, he'd made the difference. And Taiwo had got across that front post. I was talking to Glenn after the game. Thought that was vital. I thought Taiwo and the runs he made yesterday, despite his goals, I still got one or two question marks over him, but his running off the ball yesterday was fantastic. He was coming forward, he was dropping back, he was doing different things. He got into the position to score that goal. He got across the front post. If he does that, he'll score 15 goals this season, never mind 10, and he'll keep this great record up. So I think there's plenty of positives to take from it, in the fact that we did give it a go. We was playing a team that was fantastic in the second half, and it's not always easy to look like you're giving it a go against a team that are fantastic. But I think the fact we were trying to get that ball forward, go a little bit more direct. The fans are questioning Cooper and this low block and high press and all this kind of thing. But we've got to get that ball into their half, and it made Arsenal think about what they were doing. And that's all we could do, really, because when they got the ball down, they could pass it around us and do what they wanted. They could have easily nicked the game and sealed it a little bit sooner, even after our goal. But that's what you open yourself up to, isn't it? That we're a lot of fans today saying, why didn't we play like that from the start? Why didn't we do that? Because if we'd have done that, it could have been 8-1, or 8-2. We could have scored a goal. But Arsenal, if we'd have carried on playing it, we were playing it because we tried to hang in the game. We saw a build-up of that from last season. I spoke to Glenn again. I sort of worked it all out back to the Man City game when we soaked up a lot of pressure, scored in the second half by taking the game forward bit by bit, in stages, hanging into the game. I think we saw at the end of the season, the longer we could hang in and nick a goal here and there, we could get points. And I think that's the promising thing, that we're starting to see signs of a way of playing in the Premier League that might just accumulate as points. So definitely a lot more confident today than I was going into the game. So, yeah, as I said at the top of the show, nobody likes getting beat, but it's an easier one to take than what we've seen at times last year.
No, I agree. And it was... I was a bit worried that my first time at the Emirates will be one to forget, to be completely honest. But despite the loss, as you say, there's a lot of things that we can look at and we can value. And I think, including, as you say, Taiwo, I think he's adding a lot more to his game as time goes by, because when he first came, he just didn't look right. And obviously, I know there was a lot of people having their own doubts, and I had my own doubts about whether Taiwo Awoniyi could be a striker for Nottingham Forest week in, week out, and actually being clinical. And I mean, I don't know how many games in a row it is now that he's actually scored. If you were to count last season as well, it's 5 games in a row, as you say. So, I mean, if you want to talk about clinical, then Taiwo Awoniyi is clinical. If you can keep him fit, I do agree. Yeah, 15 goals would make sense to me. I think that him and Elanga proved to be a real good pairing. And I think that there's a lot of criticism for Brennan Johnson as well for his performance yesterday. And he wasn't brilliant. But at the same time, you have to ask, is he being played in the right place? Because I don't think that Brennan Johnson is even remotely similar to Taiwo Awoniyi. And I don't think that Brennan Johnson suits the kind of profile of a player we need playing up top. I think that exposes the fact that we haven't really got enough options to play up top and provide some competition and also cover for Taiwo Awoniyi. So as much as I, think that Brennan Johnson's a brilliant goal scorer, he's not that number 9 that we need and that we do better with Tyrone. He's a right winger, and I'd love to be able to see Elanga on the left and Johnson on the right and Awani up top. But it's evident that there's additions needed across the board in order for that to happen, including maybe a stronger midfield. I think we need more dominance in the midfield and some more strength in defence. Maybe look at going into a back 4 if we can strengthen up a little bit. But it's easier said than done. So I'll ask you this question then, Glenn. Looking forward to Sheffield United and also future games, what approach do you think Steve Cooper will take? Because I can't see him having the kind of, and as I said, I don't really like to use the word, but the low or mid block, actually, as Steve Cooper himself described it yesterday, a low or mid block system. Do you think Forest are going to be a little bit more brave going forward?
Wow, what a question. I think it's very clear, isn't it? And Cooper spoke at detail and at length about his hopes and aspirations in terms of the way he wants to play. At the moment, they're playing in a particular format that works for them with the squad they've got and the opposition they're playing against. I think it's clear that Brennan, like you were saying, is not the number 9 we were looking for, and arguably T, as his fitness improves, it's very clear that 20 minutes is probably as much as he could play at the moment. He's not the player that would arguably feature in that position. And Brennan, you were right, was in the wrong position. We'll no doubt talk about Brennan's opportunity in the first half a little later on, but he's always been getting himself in those sorts of positions. It's very clear, isn't it, that Brennan would prefer to play out on the right hand side a little bit more and have that player coming through. The crosses he was putting into T at the end of last season, the number of goals he scored off of that, that low cross, just skimming across the second 6-yard box, sort of between the penalty area and the penalty spot. Ideal position for him. The goal he scored at Chelsea. So the issues that we've got in that position, and particularly like you mentioned there, the issues we've got in midfield, perhaps prevent us from doing that. Arguably, as Elanga gets fitter and is perhaps in a position to play a little bit longer and arguably start games, as T gets fitter, as others get fitter. I think Olaina had a great game yesterday, but it's very clear that he's not fit enough to play 60 minutes yet. So as those sorts of players come back into fitness, Felipe, I know that Nikate was there on the bench, but probably wasn't fit enough to do any more than the 15, 20 minutes that he may have needed to come on. There's a situation as these players get fitter and in a position to start, then they may well start in those sorts of formats. I think for the moment, Jay, to answer your question, it would be lovely if that's the situation at this stage, certainly against Sheffield United. But I think the low block may well be the way that we would play against them, arguably, as with four more days of recovery, we may well start with a different team. But I think ultimately that may well be the middle 30, 40 minutes that we will then slot into as changes are made. So I'd like to think so, yes, but not at this stage in the season based on players coming back from fitness.
It's always difficult, I think, as well, when it comes to being in the Premier League, the fact that there's not really an easy game. Because, in the Championship, you can any league's obviously always difficult. But when you're in the Premier League, you can't really say there's a game where it's like a guaranteed 3 points. Because there's some games in the Championship where you'd play Barnsley at home, for example, in the 21-22 season, where you go, I put my house on the fact that it's going to be a 1-2, 3-0 win for Forest, and it's going to be a boring game, but it's just going to be a win. You can't really do that much in the Premier League. And the thing is as well now is that people do complain about Cooper's tactics, but I think he's only really playing with what he's got. And he's alluded to it so many times in his press conferences that Forest need to make some additions. And it's clear to me, specifically yesterday, where we lack. And I love Ryan Yates. I love Orel Mangala. I love Danilo. Because obviously these guys are, part of the spine of our team. They've been brilliant. But in order for us to go to the next level, we need to bring in someone that's going to anchor the midfield. It's going to anchor the midfield. And I'm talking, a really good CDM. And obviously that, again, is easier said than done because, I'm not the one that's looking for one. I can't go out and find one. Sangare is going to be really difficult to bring in with other interest in him. So the job of Forest recruitment team is a lot more difficult than what people actually think it is. This isn't a case of Forest just going, right, we've just found this absolute wonder kid, let's go and buy him. You've got to factor in, is he ready for the Premier League? How much is he going to cost? What's the weekly cost with him? There's a lot going on behind the scenes that I don't think we're even going to be even remotely accustomed to. But it's evident that we need additions. But yesterday, there was positives. And I think you both kind of touched on those things. And despite the fact that Arsenal had so much possession and they were so comfortable on the ball, Thomas Partey and Declan Rice, I mean, that's what I'm talking about when anchoring a midfield. Obviously, we're never going to get that level of quality in our midfield just yet. But when you talk about being comfortable and dominating a game, you need players that are strong in the midfield. Because I think that, the best sides are the ones with the best midfielders. You look at Man City, they've got your Rodris and your De Bruyne's and et cetera, et cetera. And, even newly promoted teams like Burnley are making additions with Sander Berge, and other players like that. So there's good additions being made across the Premier League. So it'd be interesting to see who we bring in. But Des, where do you think Forest need to strengthen most? And I'm going to ask you a kind of a sub-question as part of this. The goalkeeping position, is Matt Turner fit enough to be number one? It's early doors, but do you think there's potential that he could be number one?
I think there's obviously potential. He comes with a good reputation. The Arsenal fans I spoke to yesterday, as you know, I spoke to a few, really sort of pleased with what he did for them. But they're looking to take their team to the next level, aren't they? And by all accounts, I've not seen too much of him myself, although I do know him well. Who they're looking to sign is an excellent goalkeeper, and he will be pushing Ramsdale for number one. He's not there to sit on the bench. So it's not as if they're just accepting second best in that place. And like you touched on with the CDM position, we're not in the same league as Arsenal for players. So to say he can't get in their team and he's not pushing for number one doesn't mean he's a bad player. I thought in the first half yesterday, and I was perhaps a bit harsh, perhaps a bit frustrated with what had happened. I thought he was a little bit shaky, but that was kind of understandable as well, because it would have been a really surreal situation for Turner. It would have been one of those really tricky things where he was on the bench last week in the Charity Shield, and then he's in the team for Forest at the Emirates. So he'd have had nerves. He'd have been desperate to impress. He'd have been desperate to perhaps prove a point. But ultimately, in the second half, I think he really he was really part of what we did. I mentioned before how he got the ball and he was looking to get it up the pitch really quickly. He made some good saves. He made some saves that was comfortable, but was important in their own right. Sorry, I've got an unruly dog trying to bite me. So yeah, he made some really good saves and he did what he needed to do. And his shot stopping, which I've heard is a real sort of plus point, and his handling were comfortable. So yeah, pretty pleased with him. Feel he can do a job for us in the coming weeks. We're all still hankering a little bit, and believe it happened deep down. Dean Henderson and come. There's talk of injuries and things like that, and it might go all the way to the wire. But I'd like to see Henderson. I feel a little bit more confident, despite the fact Turner did absolutely nothing wrong. And I thought as he grew into the game, he's shown he's going to be a worthwhile signing. Of course, there's not the same level of faith in Horvath and Shelvey as a youngster. I thought Shelvey done really well in pre-season, but it's a big game to throw someone in at the Emirates. So yeah, pleased with him. When you come to signings, Jay, you know the answer to what I think. I've been banging on about it for the last season. That CDM you're talking about, number 6, the guy who's going to take control of what we do, the possession, go hard into tackles, find it, get the ball forward a little bit more quickly. Everybody looks at what Joe Worrell does, what Brennan Johnson does, what other players in certain positions are doing. But the reality is we've not got that link. Ryan Yates is a fantastic person and a player to have around, but he doesn't play that role. He's been playing a bit further forward, being a bit more involved in the game in that sense. But we need that link from the defence to the midfield, then to get the ball quickly to Gibbs White. Gibbs White, when he gets the ball and he's looking for Tyro, as you saw at the end of last season, it works. It's a way of playing on the counter-attack. But imagine he's getting that ball 2-3 seconds sooner. He's got that little bit more time to look what's doing. Puts in a shift, Gibbs White, and I know he was at fault for that second goal, but he puts in a shift coming back. If he had a little bit more time to express himself going forward, we've seen it for England in the summer, seen it in spells for Sheffield United and Wolves. You know, what a player is. I'm not saying he didn't do it for Forest, but I'd just like to see him in the opposition's half even more, you know, a little bit more. And I think you get so much more. And that's why the number 6 is so important. Me and Glenn was flashing it out, as I've already said, after the game in a pub incidentally called the Library, just around the corner from Emirates. So, as I said, it wasn't the first library I was in yesterday afternoon, but and a much better atmosphere. But we were flashing it out, and I kind of come up with a bit of a formation, especially for games where we feel it might be more winnable. You know, if we've got that CDM, and then you're linking up with Johnson and Danilo and Gibbs White, and then out wide, if you had Johnson and Ilanga and Taiwo through the middle, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen soon, and one or two things might change with transfers. But that sounds decent. You know, a good solid CDM. You've got Nick Carter and Felipe at the back. You've got Aina and Aurier, and then those in front of him. All of a sudden, you start thinking that sounds decent. That sounds like a good. I was worrying about signings and a lack of them after all what happened last year. But all of a sudden, you've got a number 6 in there who can really dominate a football match. Those guys have got a bit more chance to go and impose themselves on a game. And again, when it comes back to this low block, high press, all this nonsense, I hate these words. You know, when it comes to that, the game's different all of a sudden because you're not sat in so much. Your forwards are occupying the team in the other half of the pitch, you know, so you're not constantly under threat, and it looks like a different affair altogether. So for me, it's imperative. You know, it looks like you say, Sanghera might be on his way to Bayern. You know, we're not going to be able to compete with that. But we've got to get someone in there who makes us better as a football side. Too slow and lethargic, and for all the things Yates and Mangala might be good at, you know, they don't move the ball quick enough. They really don't, and give it away. Possession, you know, keeping the football. It was highlighted at times yesterday with the second goal especially. You give the ball away, you get punished. Might have been a worldy finish, and you can't sort of foresee that sometimes. But we still gave them the ball. If we don't give them the ball, he doesn't get a chance to shoot. And again, if you've got players in there who are comfortable, confident, and want to drive the team forward, I think we're giving ourselves a chance of losing this tag. You know, we've got this tag of being a defensive team who wants to let the other team play with the ball. Yes, away from home, it's going to have to happen, you know, because the Premier League's so fast and furious. It's crazy, it's bonkers. But there's times when, as a team, and for the development of what we're trying to achieve and establish ourselves in this league, there's times where we're going to have to dominate games. We're going to have to get on top of teams. We touched on it on this show lots of times. The one team we probably dominated as much as anybody last season in the midfield was Liverpool, because they were so weak. You know, they all their frailties came out and we got amongst them. But if that's the only game, and then they got 5 world-class strikers, so it didn't really matter, especially in the away game. But if we're not doing that against teams at home, and some of the opposition that we will come up against, you know, I know we'll talk about the Sheffield United game, and I'm counting no chickens, but against this type of opposition, we've got to start dominating the football possession and driving forward.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, as you say, I think a number 6, a new number 6 would be quite instrumental in that. But with what we've got at the moment, I don't see why we can't improve with what we've got at the moment. But of course, additions would really help, because it is more quality and depth. And I do think that there is places in the first team that you can improve on, definitely. And we know how much we rely on Felipe and Niakate being fit. And as a Premier League outfit, you can't just rely on 1 or 2 players to make your team tick. It's impossible. And a little bit on the goalkeeper as well. And I'm going to be controversial in saying this. And if this does get clipped by Dore to rinse me out, then yeah, thanks. But I'm not that keen on Dean Henderson coming back to Forest. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to say it now, and I want to get it off my chest because the saga at the moment is going on for so long. It's been going on for so long, and obviously that's not really his fault. And there is definitely mitigating circumstances, and obviously Tom Heaton getting injured is a big problem for Dean Henderson if he wants a move. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a big price tag that comes with Dean Henderson. He's, it's going to be in the region of 20 to 25 million pounds. And I looked at Turner yesterday, and it is early doors. So I don't want to be that guy. And I know it's early doors, and my opinion could very well change in the next 2 or 3 games because that's how life goes. So I won't say this is a concrete opinion forever, but I think that Matt Turner is a good goalkeeper who distributes quickly and aids our counter-attack. With the kind of football we're playing at the moment, you need someone who distributes quickly and distributes accurately. I don't think that Dean Henderson offered us that. I don't think he distributed near as quick as we needed him to. Because as you say, Des, we don't distribute that quick in midfield. So if we can get it from the goalkeeper and out quicker, I suppose that helps a little bit more rather than waiting around and allowing the other team to press us more. And I think the goalkeeper is a massive part of our game plan. When we had Brice Samba, who I think is a world-class goalkeeper now, I think he's in that realm. He's playing in the Champions League now. He had the distribution of, just one of the best distributions I've ever seen from a goalkeeper. He distributed it very quickly, whether that be with hands or feet. And I think we need that. And Matt Turner, again, early doors, but he offered and showed glimpses of that. He showed glimpses of leadership and a fraction of the cost. And if he is going to be number 2, fair enough. But do we really want to be spending £20 million on a goalkeeper when it's pretty apparent to me that the lack of quality doesn't lie in that position for Forest at the moment? We need a second goalkeeper, and I'm not going to dispute that because that is pretty essential. I don't think that Horvath cuts it in the Premier League. But if we're going to put priorities in there, specifically for what we were just talking about then, Des, would people rather spend £20 million on a goalkeeper, or would they rather spend £30 million on a really good CDM? Because Henderson's not fit yet. I don't know how many more setbacks he's going to have. I personally, for me, want more from a goalkeeper if they're going to cost me 20 to 25 million pounds. Love Dean Henderson, love his contribution, and I think he's he's a good goalkeeper. But it's a lot of money to spend on a player that actually at the moment, I'm not entirely sure we need more than a good CDM to anchor that midfield or anything more than that. So that's just my personal opinion, and it will be controversial, and I appreciate everyone will have their own view on that, and people will want Henderson back, and I was in that boat a few weeks ago, but now I'm in the position where I feel that it's gone on for too long, and we have to start building a team around those that we have now. How much longer can we keep umming and ahhing for? So that's just my opinion. Glenn, I don't know what you think about that. I'm sorry it went on to a bit of a rant there, but let me know what you're thinking.
I'm going to do what I do sometimes on this channel, and no doubt I'll get cussed out, and I am already in the comments about certain things I'm saying. I think Southampton is a winnable game. Sorry, Sheffield United is a winnable game, and I think we should go and aim to get 3 points from that game. However, the question you're asking, I actually think a lot of what you're saying makes a lot of sense, despite some of the comments who are saying we need a second keeper. We've got a second keeper. He's an international player. And he's being kept out of the USA national team by our number 1, remember. So we've got another player that we could bring in. For right now, you're absolutely right, Jay, and I can't argue with what you're saying. For the remainder of the transfer window, we need to look at developing the squad rather than having a backup for a player that we already have seen based on yesterday. And I think Des's point's exactly right. He made his Premier League debut with the club that he's been playing for a year. The irony is he's in the yellow rather than the black top. And to a certain extent, you're absolutely right that we do need that number 6. And if that's going to develop the team in much more better way on the field, then that's something we definitely need to look at. And some of that 20 million is definitely worthwhile spending on that player for the benefit of the team against against City and against United and against Chelsea over the next couple of matches. Before the end of the window, you're absolutely right. There may well be a situation where Henderson becomes available. He passes a fitness test, which at the moment he still won't do. And he'll be the ideal player to slot back into a team that he's very familiar with and a backroom staff that he's very aware of, etc., which is half of the battle with any player coming in, isn't it? That they know where the locker is, they know where everything is. What we do need to do is strengthening key areas. Des and I won't go into detail about this, is talking about what we feel we can do and what we feel we aren't perhaps able to do in terms of developing our squad and the barriers against that. But nevertheless, I think that needs to be a player equally. And I think to say the second side of me sitting on the fence and getting spikes on my butt, there may well be a situation where Mangala, and I've seen him playing and training over the summer. He was in Florida, I think, doing a lot of work there and developing certain characteristics of what a six would need. I didn't think he played particularly well yesterday, although there were glimpses of him playing very well in shifting and transition. Defensively, he was standing still for that turn against the two players he didn't really feature that lot in terms of Saka's goal. If my screen just glitched, can you hear me okay? My screen, okay, cool. I think if I was involved in that second goal in terms of bringing that.
I think we've lost Glenn.
Jay, I'll jump in on that goalkeeper point because
Glenn didn't hear you.
I'll go on, Glenn.
Sorry, boys.
Yeah, so I was just going to say,
I think. After you.
I was just going to say, Jay, I disagree with you on the goalkeeper. To be honest,
fair enough.
I believe Henderson is a better keeper than Turner. As a Premier League team these days, you need two real quality goalkeepers. Yes, it's become a saga. I totally get the point on that. It's really become something that we could. I wanted it sorted as soon as the season finished. It would have been nice to then think we've got that position sorted. We move forward. It gives us all confidence in the club, in the transfer window, in what we could achieve. It didn't work that way, but I think, as I touched on with Arsenal, that they're looking to sign a goalkeeper for 30 million to push Aaron Ramsdale all the way. If we've got Turner pushing Henderson all the way, or vice versa, it's a good position to be in. What happens if Turner isn't fit? They're having to put someone in then who they don't trust. They obviously don't trust them because they want to sign two goalkeepers. So I think Henderson is a quality keeper. I get your points on his distribution. It's not fantastic, but again, he's got a wealth of experience. He's sort of got Forest bred into him now. He's bought into the club. He wants to be here. It sounds like he lives here already, by some of the comments. And I think it's really, really important that we get that tied down. I get your point. If it came down to a CDM or a goalkeeper, there might be a choice to make. But the reality is we need both. We need both because we need a squad capable of competing. And what we don't want to be left at any point is left short when we can't and not being able to deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's just a situation that I particularly don't want to. I've not really wanted to speak about it too much because I really like Dean Henderson, and he did do well when he played for us, and obviously that injury that he had and still has was really devastating, to be honest. And I do think that he offered us a little bit more than Keylor Navas did, because I think you do need a goalkeeper that's I don't like using the word, but a bit of a shithouse at times, because we play better with that, I think. But at the same time, I don't know what Forest's situation is with what players they can and can't bring in. I think the Dean Henderson saga, for me, is going on incredibly long. And it's how long are we just going to hold out to have him rather than signing someone else? Because there is other options. no doubt Forest will have other options. They won't just have Dean Henderson. Obviously, he's probably their number one target for a goalkeeper, I'm sure. And if he did join Forest, by the way, I wouldn't be opposed to it, because as soon as you put on the shirt, that's it. I'm happy with you being at the club, no matter who you are, or whatever has happened. It's just, at the moment, I think that there's other priorities that Forest need to focus on, and definitely bringing in a goalkeeper, of course. But how long is it going to go on for, and how long have we actually got to keep holding out for Dean Henderson? Because if we do go back in January, that's well and good. But as you say, it's whether, if anything happens to Matt Turner, and God forbid it does, what do you do with your backup? And as Glenn says, of course, America international Ethan Horvath. So I don't want to be disrespectful, because there's definitely a quality goalkeeper there, but I don't feel particularly comfortable with him in goal in comparison to Turner, like others will feel maybe about Turner compared to Henderson. That's just my personal view. But I suppose we'll find out more in the coming weeks and months. And who knows, maybe Henderson signs, and if he does, again, full waiver of support from me. But I think we should put full priority on that number 6 role, and of course look at a goalkeeper. And maybe that won't be Henderson, but we'll wait and see. Now let's look forward, though, to something that is inevitable and is definitely happening, hopefully without a delay this time, and that's Nottingham Forest versus Sheffield United. So, Glenn, let's start with you. I hope you can hear us now, Glenn, because we had a bit of a technical gremlins moment a moment ago. But looking forward to Sheffield United, then, that's a team that's recently promoted. They've lost 2 of their best players, but they're a team that will want revenge after that semi-final game and that was, by the way, I think that game was better than Wembley. Maybe that's another controversial point, but that was genuinely the most exciting game I've ever seen in my life. They will be out for revenge after that game. They'll be out for revenge after all of the drama over the 2 legs, etc., etc. So how do you see that game planning out? And do you think that maybe it's going to be a little bit more difficult than some Forest fans are anticipating?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. There will be, how can I say this? There will be an incredible atmosphere, without a doubt. There will be a group of Forest players who will be looking at the form of all of these teams and going, we reckon we can have a really good go against this team. The fans, and it's very widely in the news and everywhere else, are saying that this is a weakened team compared to the team that we played with Samba in goal. And I totally hear what you're saying there. That penalty final second leg was one of the best football matches I've ever experienced in my short but colourful life. It was incredible. Comparison to that, when I was standing next to Des in Wembley, that was one of the most dull hour and a half. And arguably, had it been those 2 teams, we would have had a really cracking playoff final. The game on Friday night under the floodlights against any team at the City Ground is always an atmosphere, is always a real spectacle. What I do hope is that Sheffield United come out and give us a game, put us in a situation where we can really go against them. They are a wounded dog. They're in a situation where they've not got the players that they would ideally wanted to start the season with, and they've got nowhere near the strength that they finished the Championship with. Nevertheless, they're going to come back out. I hear what you're saying, Jay, to a certain extent, that they're going to want to have a little bit of payback. I don't know how many of the players that were playing on that day are still in the club. I think the fans are going to have that attitude more than the players to a certain extent, and they're going to be wanting to come and get something from the game, and they're going to come and make it really difficult for us. The team that we put out, I hope, like I was saying in the previous question or two, needs to be a team that's going to understand that they're going to come and throw everything at it. They're not going to really overly. They're going to play ideally, I think, in the situation that they've been in the way of playing that they've played coming into the Premier League. The naivety that we had after the first or second game, where we tried to play the way that we were playing and got our asses whipped. Those 3 or 4 goals is a situation. I think that naive behaviour is perhaps the way that we're going to have Sheffield United, or what we hope Sheffield United will come into that game with, and we can exploit that. that's certainly the pockets of space that we're going to be looking to develop, and the transition we're looking to bring in. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the game. Unfortunately I'm in Shropshire for the weekend, so I can't be there on Friday night. But I'll be listening, because it's not on TV either, is it? Sadly, but I'll be listening and cheering from my little Airbnb in Shropshire, in the hope that we get something from the game. It is a must-win to some. I think it's definitely something that we can put ourselves in a situation where we are in that bottom 6-7 fight, and they're a competitor in that Premier League Division 3, and we've got to get something from the game. We can't let them do what we had. I was thinking back to another similar experience that we had when we played Fulham at our place, and they shipped 3 goals in 8 minutes, and the game was out of our reach, despite us going ahead, didn't we? So what we need to do is be really, really critical, clinical, do a lot of hard work this week, recover from a tough game yesterday, and make sure we're ready for Friday night. And it should be an amazing game. Can't wait. Good luck to everybody who's there. Sing up.
I'm glad I'm not going to be there as a fan, because I genuinely don't think I could. My body could take it. My heart could not take that. No way. And I do think Sheffield United are going to present a threat. But I've said, and maybe I'm putting too much pressure on, but I've said it's a must-win for me. We've got to go there got to start the season for the first home game, and we have to beat them, I think. And it's going to be difficult. I'm not even going to, disguise that at all, because Sheffield United will be a tough opponent and they will have a good mentality. But we have to go and beat them. We have to. It's first home game. We've got to set that precedent. And I think strong home form is going to be absolutely necessary again this season. We know that. And it could be a similar scenario to last season. I hope not, but it could end up being that way. So for me, it's a must win. But Des, do you feel it's a must win as well?
To some degree, yes. We've got to get the season up and running. We know the fixtures we've got. Yesterday was relatively positive. Relatively, let's not get too carried away with some of the good things we've said. Based on that, based on what I saw with Sheffield United on Match of the Day, they could have got done heavily by Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, although they only won 1-0, were very, very comfortable and created a lot of chances in that game. Based on the fact that they've lost players, their best players at that, they're not as strong as they were. I have a few Sheffield United contacts, and they're not particularly confident either. So all those things point to a home win. But then Forest have still got to apply themselves properly, haven't they? And one thing we can guarantee, I used the term, and I don't want to swear too much on here, but I used the term yesterday, it's going to be batshit on Friday night, isn't it? Because when we play Sheffield United, all rules are off. No rules apply, because they'll be right up for it. We know what their manager is. He's a wind-up merchant. He got under the sort of City ground skin last time when they was up against it. We were the better team going into the game, the first leg, and should have run out comfortable in the second leg. But they find this way, don't they? Sheffield United are one of those teams on a one-off occasion. It's happened for years, and some teams have just got that knack. So they'll be right up for the game. They'll be desperate to prove a point, and they'll be feeling it's a must-win for them as well. They'll be thinking Forest don't have much possession. If we can get more of a foot on the ball, get the first goal, quieten the crowd, all these typical things that teams will try to do at the City ground. They'll be thinking that there's points in it for them as well. I think we're better than Sheffield United. I think the season of experience and looking at individual players and the more high-profile players on the pitch will be for us. I think we've got every chance, but we've got to apply ourselves properly and work on some of those things that work well. If we're anything below, like we keep saying, the Premier League's going to gobble you up and spit you out. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? So yeah, it's kind of must win, and you feel to get some points, to calm a few nerves, to lessen the dramatic response to being 2-0 down at half time yesterday before there was a few positives. I think we've got to go into this game and really take it to them. Of course, it's going to be a brilliant night at the City ground under lights. It's what we kind of want. And it's what we do this for, isn't it? It's kind of a local derby as well, although it's not properly. So it's important for us to get the points, make a bit of a statement, just to take into these future away games and 1 or 2 games coming up. As we've said throughout, and as a lot of fans are alluding to, the teams coming up don't appear to be very strong. So if we can start sort of picking them off one by one, starting on Friday, then hopefully we prove right and we win that league that Glenn was talking about. We're the top of that bottom third, and that's the most important thing, isn't it? Getting points as and where we can, and Friday represents a fantastic opportunity.
It absolutely does, and you've got me a little bit. I'm a little bit excited for Friday now. I'm feeling ready. I'm 18 now, so I think I can probably have a drink afterwards. Hopefully, it's a happy one. But it's gonna be an exciting. It's gonna be an exciting night. And let me know how you guys are feeling ahead of it as well. Remember to comment and also bring in your questions. We'd be more than happy to answer them. We've got another just around 15-20 minutes until we close the stream. So let me know what you guys are thinking. Mark Harrison says, our squad has got better since we last played them. Theirs has gotten worse. I mean, I absolutely do agree. I'm going to ask you this then, Glenn. Quality's definitely improved for Forest, and yeah, I do believe that quality has not quite gone the same way for Sheffield United. But how important do you think mentality is going to be for this game for Forest?
Oh, it's massive, isn't it? I think the mentality of the Forest players was shown to me during the second 45 minutes of yesterday. They were obviously given this, I watched the press conference at the end where Cooper spoke to them at halftime and talked about the situation that they were in at this stage last year. And the plan that they had going into that game, certainly in the second half, helped, I think, by the way that Arsenal sat back a little bit more, and the way that the defence played really well, and the way that Matt Turner kept us in the game, particularly that low shot, started to make us think that we are Premier League team that's been in the league for a year. The Premier League players that have played now 39 Premier League games, some of them for us, and are starting to get a situation where they believe that they are the team that are in the league and are going to stay in the league, as opposed to the Sheffield United team that have just come up and by all accounts they're here for the season to save a few quid, to solve some problems financially, and to parachute their way back down. And that's the situation that I think Forest players need to go back into, that they are the Premier League team. They've got another shirt with a badge on the sleeve, and that they're the players that have the large majority, at least, are the players that have kept the club up. And that's a massive bonus going into that game. I think that they've got that situation where they feel that they are in that. I think it's also significant that we're at home too. So we've got that extra added bonus of having the team feel like that. And also, I'm going to carry on talking. I think I've lost the feed. So sorry, boys. I've got a situation where they're at home and have also got that massive support from the team and the fans as well. So I hope you've all stopped. I'm just going to stop, boys. I'm sorry. I think I might have lost you.
Oh, I feel like I was going to shed a tear then, the way you ended that, Glenn. I felt a little bit like, just going to stop. Like, it's just, we can still hear you. We can still hear
you. You basically just stop like this. Okay, I'll carry on talking. Yeah, the mindset of those players going in has got to be that they are the established or moving towards, and we talked about this, Des, didn't we? Moving towards being that established Premier League team. And I think that's the biggest bonus that they can have going into.
Okay, yeah. Now, he was doing so good as well. He was doing so good. Unfortunately, we looks like we've lost Glenn. A soldier. So I'll ask you then, Des. We've kind of touched on Sheffield United. The last question I'm really going to ask in terms of future games is the next few away games are they're looking quite difficult, aren't they? How do you think Forest are going to fare away in the next few games, and also the away games as a whole this season? Oh, I think he's still on mute, Des. We're getting there.
Ben's got internet issues, and I've got this dog who won't calm down. I think I'll start with the end of that question, Jay. I think based on yesterday and that experience myself and Glenn have spoken about, a year in the Premier League, perhaps some of the opposition won't be quite as good as it was last year. Even it might be. We're expecting it not to be, just by the fact that they've not invested in the same way. Teams went down last year. Some of them were established Premier League teams. So I think we've got every chance, and we've got to improve on that away form. You know, if we play like we did towards the end of last season, which is a formula that I think we've taken into this season, about sticking in games, we'll stick in a lot longer against teams that are not as clinical as Saka firing one in from 25 yards. We'll stick in there. We'll stick in there, and they'll give it a go. Hopefully, what we saw against Arsenal. Let's be honest. Let's not get carried away. We're not going to get much out the next 3, 4, 5 away games. You know, we've still got Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Man United. And if you saw that Liverpool-Chelsea game today, they've both gone to another level. That was a fantastic game of football. Some of the additions they made were quite frightening. So I think there's a lot of difficult days ahead on the road. You know, it's crazy, it's bonkers, as I said before. It's tough, you know, it's a hard watch. It's frustrating, you know, but I think there's lots of those tough ones. But then on the flip side to that, what we saw yesterday and some of the other kind of opposition, and the fact we've found that formula, because all these teams that have come up, you know, one or two teams who get sucked in won't have that, won't be used to playing without the ball, won't know what's hit them when they get to the Premier League. You saw yesterday the Luton's result, for example, and the fact Sheffield United faced 24 shots against a Palace team that don't travel well, you know, and who themselves are weaker than last season. So I think there's definitely points in the offering. I think we'll definitely get more than last season, and that'll be a bonus for a start, won't it? I think some of the pressure off the home games, you know, a little bit. There's always going to be that little bit of pressure to get points at home, because most teams do. What people don't really understand is, if you look at a team like Palace, they have not too dissimilar records to Forest over season after season until they almost crack it. You know, everybody said this season they'd like to be a Palace and sit in 13th for a few seasons. Not quite sure that's strictly true, but they've had to endure this difficult patch. Brighton, they finished 15th, 16th, 17th, and then they've hit on a formula with transfers. So sometimes you've just got to take the rough with the smooth. And I think the away form, especially this year, especially someone who goes to them and watches them, you know, it is horrible. It's horrible. You know, at half time, it looked like it was going to be 4, 5, 6-0. And you're thinking, oh my God, it's another season of this. But like I say, that I just feel like a lot of confidence taken from what we saw in the second half yesterday. And players like Elanga as well, and Tyro finding the back of the net. Of course, he had that goal record, Tyro, but he started chipping in away from home as well. When he was scoring earlier last season, it tended to be at home. He's scoring away from home, and and then we've got sort of flair players in the sense that Elanga's just got that war pace. You know, that might be the difference in an away game against Luton or Sheffield United, for example. We might not be 2-0 down at half time. We might not have much of the football. Bang, 1-0. And then that might just be enough. So I think there's plenty in the offering, but again, it's going to be that we're going to have some high highs and low lows, so to speak. And I think I'm definitely optimistic we'll get more points than before.
So am I. I think that in pre-season we kind of spoke and we said, oh, you know, is there reason to panic? And again, we're only one game in, so I'm not going to say 2-1, you know, against Arsenal. Bloody hell, we're going to go and win it, and we're going everywhere. We're going to Europa Conference League. Obviously, it's an ambition, but you know, we're making good strides. I feel compared to some of the pre-season games, but it also shows that pre-season is pre-season. It's not the Premier League. It's a very different dynamic. But yeah, as you say, I think we are going to pick more points up. There's going to be some tough games coming up. So I'll ask you this then, Glenn. It's kind of the last we'll speak on future fixtures.
Might be the last I speak on this channel. Carry on with the routine. Sorry, boys.
Let's hope that it's not the last time you speak on this channel. But
I'm actually on my 5G on my phone right now, so hopefully this will carry on.
We'll hope it.
Conversation.
Just as it right. Okay, we've got you for a moment. So, how many points do you think we're going to pick up from? If in fact, I'm going to ask you this then: what team in the next few away games do you think we are most likely to pick points up from?
Oh, wow. Looking at Chelsea today, I think it's going to be more of a challenge than it was at this stage of last season. I think Burnley, I think it's really interesting that we've got Burnley, haven't we, in the Carabao Cup, 2 fixtures before we play them at the City Ground again in the league. So that will be based on what we saw on Friday night, and Des and I were talking about Burnley. I think they're going to be a real strong force of those coming up this year. And I certainly don't share the sentiments of some who say that all 3 of those that came up would go down again. I think Burnley of the 3 are going to be the stronger position. Of those ones of the away games, I think Palace are definitely in October. Are definitely a game that we can get something from. I think they're going to be a little different to play against based on the players that have come in, but I think the situation we've got in the season and we'll take the look on at the end of that. And Chelsea, I think it's going to be a tough game, Ellie. I'm not going to lie. I think your comments earlier on, I think you're absolutely right. We're going to get something out of those games, but I think, yeah, bank holiday weekend, isn't it? So I think that's going to be a cracker. The one I think we'll get the most from is Chelsea, arguably, and Palace, definitely. So they're going to be the ones that we can certainly get something from. But they're all going to be tough, aren't they? All away games are going to be difficult. I just hope that this season, to end what I'm saying, we get more than the 1 win against a Southampton equivalent. And we certainly put a little bit more through the Lutons and the Sheffield Uniteds and those teams, the Everton, for example, who I think they're going to struggle this season. And I can't wait to see us play at Wolves, because I think we're going to give them a cracking game as well. But for the first few games, I think the Palace is going to be the one that we can certainly get something more from. I just hope that we've still got some of our potential injury-prone players after that really tough 6 or 7 games are still in a position to start and feature and continue that forward momentum that we've hopefully started as a result of yesterday and from Friday onwards.
Well, it'll be interesting going to Selhurst Park in a bit of a different context this time. It was an interesting place to go last season, and it was a bloody long drive. I'll say that. Got to go all the way around London.
2 stops on the train for me, mate.
It's all right for some, isn't it? Yeah. As for me, I had to sit with a bloody snoring DoreOnTour in the back of the car, spilling bloody sweets everywhere. You know what you were like, Dore, on that Crystal Palace away trip. Bless him. But no, seriously. Also, if you're looking to support Dore as well, don't forget that there is actually memberships available via this YouTube channel. Please do subscribe if you're enjoying the content that you see, and remember to leave a like as well and comment. We're going to close the stream in just a moment, but I'm going to go back to the Arsenal game then, and I want a straight answer. Who for Forest, and this is really difficult because I don't think we really played well enough to warrant one, but who was your man of the match per se, or man of maybe the second half for that game, Des?
It is tough. I'd probably go for the goalkeeper.
Me too.
I'd probably say Turner, because again, I've touched on what he did well. You know, like I said, I felt it was perhaps a little bit harsh on him. You know, just we was almost sat right behind him, so I could see a lot of him in the first half. I'm probably over-analysing it. So I think the way he made his stops, there was one that was arrowing into the bottom corner in particular, and the fact he handled it well, and he was the catalyst, I believe, for that second half performance. There were people moaning all the way up till the 70th minute around me that we're playing too defensive. We wasn't necessarily playing defensive in the second half. We were playing a team that were miles better than us. So it's hard to be offensive. You know, it's hard to get amongst them in the way you want to and get all over them. But for me, it was Turner getting that ball forward quickly. Probably been instructed to do so at half time, but getting it forward quickly, that was a catalyst for everything we did well. The goal didn't exactly come from him, but it come from that kind of intent and purpose.
So, Glenn, who was your man of the match?
Yeah, I'm going to echo Des. I thought he did, didn't he? He certainly made that situation where even with the clip that Worrell had and the first goal, and you see it just went between thigh and arm. It was just, you know, a millimetre here or there would have made a difference to that first goal going in from that deflected shot from Nketiah. I think the deflection that was arguably more difficult to save was that one down low to the left, and obviously Worrell went and give him a bit of a high five for making that more of a challenging shot to take. I think the distribution in the first half, I saw a situation where he was racing to the edge of his penalty box, and McKenna's there telling him to just slow it down a little bit, to give him a bit of a rest. But I think he came into a really difficult atmosphere. Obviously, his very pregnant wife was in the crowd, being very proud of seeing him play at the Emirates. And he could have in that situation, certainly in that first half. And arguably to a certain extent, he did. It took him a while, it took him 10 or 15 minutes to get into the game. But certainly by the second half, he was very much involved in the game a lot more. And I thought he was an excellent lead into that transition. Des's point earlier on saying, you know, playing down to Wood eventually when he came on, playing long balls down to Taiwo when he came on was really adding that extra height. I think when Kayate came on, adding that additional height as well as another target man in that relatively short midfield that they've got made a big difference. And I think that's certainly something that we can use to exploit those midfields on Friday and onwards. So, yeah, I thought Aina had a really good game. I certainly echo a lot of what people are saying about him. I think he certainly had a good game despite the booking that he had relatively early on. I said to my daughter who was standing next to us, I thought that they would exploit that a lot more and put a lot more pressure on him. Certainly Saka playing against him there may well have given him a bit more of an issue. But I think he held his own for the 65 or so minutes that he played. He was exceptional. But for the second half, I think the way that they developed that confidence and moving forward was certainly from the keeper onwards. So, yeah, it would go to Matt for me.
Yeah, I think Matt Turner did brilliantly. I thought the centre backs did good. McKenna was quite good actually. I think that he looks like if he's not going to be your main centre back, which I can't imagine he will be when Niakate's back, he's definitely someone that I think we should keep around. Bolly looked good. Obviously got caught off for pace a little bit, but Kai Havertz is a little bit useless as a number 9, so wasn't really too much of a threat in the end. But for me, I'm gonna say what others said, and I'm gonna go for Ola Aina. I think that he was just consistent over the course of the 50-60 minutes that he played. I think that other than maybe one time where Saka got past him, and it wasn't easy, by the way, because you had Ben White overlapping. You had Martin Ødegaard kind of hanging around the edge of the box and Bukayo Saka on the corner there, and then Ben White running in behind him. It was a real handful for him. But I think Forest watched that quite well. I think Ola Aina did a really good job of neutralising probably one of the best wingers in European football. So, yeah, Ola Aina gets it for me, but it was difficult to choose from because, as we say, it was really a spell of good performance from us that got us the goal. It's a shame we couldn't get an equaliser, but we're looking forward now ahead onto the next, as they say. Sheffield United at home. It's going to be an exciting one. We're looking forward to bringing you more content from that. Dore will be bringing you a vlog, no doubt, and I'm sure there'll be a after-match review as well. So do stick around, keep subscribing, keep commenting, keep liking. Des, thank you so much for joining tonight. Glenn, thank you so much for joining. Really looking forward to seeing both of you very soon. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure to be able to talk Forest with you this evening. As I say, do keep in contact, keep subscribing, keep doing your thing, and we'll see you all very soon. Take care. Goodbye.